Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. What did you end up doing? Did you see anything good over your, and I mean, like, judiciously? I know you saw everything over the holidays and your recuperation, but did you see anything worth talking about?
I saw, I think we've talked about it in the back channels, but I watched the whole run of Black Mirror.
Oh, so good, right?
Great TV. Just fantastic stuff to watch. Anyone who has not seen Black Mirror should go out and watch it all. It's all streaming on Netflix. Just wacky stuff.
It is. It's which one was your favorite? So there are only 6 episodes. Thankfully, the Brits, or I don't know if this is thankfully or regretfully, the Brits show great restraint when they're doing these series.
Yeah, they do.
2 seasons of 3 episodes each.
Right, and then they did a Christmas episode, which I have not been able to see yet. So,
Me neither. So which was your favorite of the 6?
You know, I don't know which one I would say is my favorite. The 2 that stick with me, and I don't remember the episode names, but obviously the first one is pretty hard to forget with the pig.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one that sticks with me is the one with the where her husband dies, and she signs up for that service where she starts getting emails from her husband and then phone calls.
That was like season 2, the first one of season 2.
Very, I don't know. It really stuck with me. It was very haunting, and there's something very creepy about that whole story. And the ending, I thought, was just very solid. I just very smart writing, very smart directing, and very just the way that they tell the stories. It's very efficient and clean, and I just was really fascinated by the shows. So
truly. I'm with you. My favorite one, I think, the one that sticks with me the most is the 3rd one of season 1, the memory implant episode, which I found just fantastic.
That one was great too.
Yeah, it was really good. But of course, the media one, the 2nd one of season 1, I thought was really terrific too. That the whole idea of working for those, going to work every day means go ride a stationary bike to power a city for the elite is pretty stunning. It was a neat approach.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. I highly recommend all of the episodes.
Anything else? Any other news? Nothing?
Well, I saw a lot of Oscar picks, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out when the big, all the awards start showering down upon everybody.
Me too.
That should be fun.
You know what I did? I saw, let's see, I did a James Bond, late series James Bond. I did all the Daniel Craigs back to back. We went to Costa Rica, right, for the holiday. And this is my airplane fodder. I actually came away liking all 3 of those films more than I originally did. I had a great time with those movies. Even the one, the desert
Quantum
one.
of Solace.
Quantum of Solace.
I think it's a very enjoyable film.
It is a very enjoyable film.
It's I don't know. It's unjustly maligned, I think. I enjoy it quite a bit.
That is the word, my friend. I totally agree with you. I walked away thinking this really works. And I think the way they jump into that film, the transition, and maybe it works even better when you watch, Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace back to back. But that transition between the 2 films is perfect. Yeah. It's just perfect. So,
yeah, jump right in a car chase or wrap it all up.
They all and all 3 of them work really, really well together. The whole transition from M to M it works really, really well. I like them much better. That's all.
Good.
That's all. This is me getting ready for Bond 24.
Excellent. Excellent.
Let's tell the people where we're from.
Yeah, where are we from?
This is the next reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hey!
And we spoil movies. Tonight, on this very show, we launch our first official series of 2015 with the early works of Sir Alec Guinness. 2 N's, 2 S's. Before we get into that, you should head over and learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you're among the few, proud, the Instagrammers, you can join us there and play the Instagram Pony Prize hashtag Guess the Movie Challenge. Starting a whole new thing here in 2015. Whole new round because we have a big winner. Comes on the heels of our very first big winner, woman who dominated the charts last year, Cameron L. Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Andy, do you know off the top of your head what she won?
There's a big old list. We posted it over on our blog actually, but it does include. Let's see, she gets to be the first listener's choice or listener to pick a listener's choice episode for us this year, which is going to happen right after our Alec Guinness series. She gets one of our brand new shirts, which we are thrilled to be getting out into the world.
It is. It's in the wind. It's already It's already shipped.
We made a donation in her name to the Film Foundation, which is Martin Scorsese's great nonprofit that preserves films. And then they also provided a couple newly restored films on DVD for her. And just a whole slew of other things, all the way down to a little tiny pony.
So there's a lot of other stuff. We've got other films. We've got one that I'm particularly excited about. She picked a genre, and we included a series of 5 films with custom. I'm sure that's not the word I'm looking for.
Personally curated.
Yes, personally curated by the one, the only Tommy Handsome, and she chose, of course, horror, and that's right up his alley. So I think she's going to get a wonderful collection of horror films with Tommy's endorsement and review of each. So
very exciting.
That's going to be a very exciting one. So lots of great stuff, and so we're still doing it. We are still doing it, and Cameron L. Ryan is the one to beat. There is a big Instagram target right on Cameron L. Ryan's account because she just she does a heck of a job with that contest. She is still going to be playing and can still compete. And the way we're doing it for past winners, if you've already won and you win a second year in a row, we're going to give you the shirt for that year, and then the big prize, pony prize winner, is the second place person.
Right.
Does that make any sense at all? Did I say that right?
That makes pretty good sense.
Don't overthink it. So, finally, don't forget, as we mentioned, if you haven't visited thenextreel.com and clicked on the little T-shirt in the sidebar to order your very own 2014 commemorative Next Reel shirt, custom art by the fantastic Joe Mija, you should do so right away. They're not going to be around forever. I think probably a couple more weeks. We'll leave those up there, and then they will be gone. Have you ordered yours yet?
I have it right here in my house.
You've received it already?
Yes, I just got it the other day.
Oh, nuts.
I'm very excited. It looks great.
Does it really?
Yes.
We were out of the country, and so I just ordered mine yesterday. And so I'm very sad I don't have them yet, but they're on the way. I got one for everybody. And I actually had to lie to our provider because, you can't actually, Joe Mija, our dear friend and artist, friend of the show, one of the little things one of the little pieces of art, one of the little slides he put on the film is of, it's from Seven, and it has a gun. And, we would not have been able to make kids shirts because it has a gun on it. And so I checked the little box that said, no, there are no guns on here. Thank goodness it's all curated by dumb robots who don't know how to read or see. Right. And so I ordered my kids' shirts. My kids are going to be walking around with guns on their chests. But it's from Seven, and so that's okay.
That's okay. The gun's in Seven. That's fine.
There are lots of options. You can get like a scoop neck or a V-neck or a women's cut or a men's cut or a whatever you want of a cut. There are lots of cuts.
And lots of colors.
Go get your shirt. Lots of colors. We prefer gray. That's all.
Yeah. I was gonna get a different color, and then I opted to just go with the gray.
Well, you got to get the gray, and if you want another color, you get another color too.
Right. Yeah. That's the only way to do it.
How'd we do this week?
This was a pretty good week. It was Fritz Lang's 1944 film Ministry of Fear, and we had a nice variety of images that popped up on this, and it was, I believe, the 4th image in, and it was the little tip of the hat that Ray Milland does in the photo there that gave it away to Paz Malti, who ended up getting it, and Paz Malti is now entered to win this year's Pony Prize.
Right out of the gate. Strong start. Paz Malti.
Excellent.
I love it. And with that, Andrew,
Mm-hmm.
Let's do trailers. I'm going to kick it off with this one.
Do it.
I'm going to do it. It is weirdly close to home. But it also happens to be kind of an homage to North Korea. It is a James Franco film. True story, starring Franco and Jonah Hill. It's sort of this is a roundabout story of Christian Longo. He's a Portland guy who killed his wife and 3 children back in 2001. It was a whole big thing back in the day around these parts. But the story actually centers on Michael Finkel, who's a journalist. He was once employed by the New York Times. Turns out Finkel was fired from the Times for being a fabulist. So here comes Longo, who starts calling himself Michael Finkel while he's on the run, which kicks off this crazy relationship between Longo and Finkel, who is, of course, looking for this one great shot to redeem his career with a great story to report on. So I have this hot and cold relationship with Franco's performances, but I do think he has a real strength at playing the gently psychotic, and I really get that vibe in this trailer. I don't have that same relationship with Jonah Hill. That guy is just great all around. I'm really excited to see what he does here. Film is directed by Rupert Gould, who also wrote the screenplay based on Finkel's memoir. It's Gould's, as far as I can find, it's Gould's first feature film, though he comes off a string of really what looked to be ambitious Broadway works. He directed Patrick Stewart in this hip revival of Macbeth. And, of course, my favorite, a London collaboration with musician Duncan Sheik to direct Bret Easton Ellis's American Psycho as a musical thriller. And the music is really, really creepy, which is also kind of an homage to the film we're doing tonight. True Story opens in the U.S. January 23rd in wide release. What'd you think?
I think it looks good. I hadn't heard of it, but watching the trailer and seeing the performances, I was like, this looks actually pretty good. And I'm right there with you as far as Jonah Hill goes. I mean, he's, as long as it's not like the babysitter sort of material, I'm happy to watch Jonah Hill act. Mm-hmm. I think he brings a lot to the table, and I think that he started in dumb comedies, and I think it's easy to get trapped in that world. And I think he's found the right films to help transition out of that a little bit, even though he still jumps back into it often.
Conscious choice, man. Conscious choice.
Exactly. But this looks like it's a great opportunity for him to kind of show his stuff a little bit more, and I'm quite excited.
Oh, me too. I was glad to find this one. It's really snuck up on me, and that it opens so soon. I can't believe I hadn't seen the trailer for this one.
Yeah, I mean, it always makes me nervous when things open in January, but I still thought it looked pretty good.
I think so too. All hail. True Story. Your turn.
Mine is not a true story.
Segue.
It's called Black or White, and the trailer has been out for a good number of weeks now, and it's another film opening in January, so there's always that. It's got your favorite 2x4 in it, Kevin Costner. There's a lot of things that potentially look bad about this film, and it very likely could be. It's Kevin Costner is the grandfather of this little girl. His wife has died. And he's in this trapped in kind of a custody battle with this young girl's other mother, and it's his granddaughter is African American, the other family is African American. They're an actual family, and so there's this interesting kind of pull between the two sides as they kind of fight over this little girl. It's kind of a drama comedy. It looks like it could be bad. Octavia Spencer's in it. I think she's fantastic. The thing that kind of sells me on it, as opposed to any other film trailer like this that I would see that would just look like just schlock, is the fact that Mike Binder is the writer-director on it. And I always find him a very interesting guy when he's making films. I really enjoyed The Upside of Anger, a film that he made that came out in, I believe, 2005. It was a very kind of interesting story about a family dealing with a husband that disappeared. And that was just a very interesting movie. And I'm hoping that this is something like that. And there's no telling. Like I said, it is a January film. It could be garbage, but I don't know. I'm kind of crossing my fingers, hoping that there's a little more to it than that.
I'm about to blow your mind.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. I also have watched this trailer a few times, and you're right. There's a lot of things in here. There are a lot of things in here that look like it could be bad. 2x4 is not one of them.
Hey,
I think he looks great. I think he comes off as just this a really sort of charming curmudgeon that's just sort of right in the role. Like, it feels a little bit like a hand-to-glove role for me. For him, and I think you know where I stand on him.
I was very excited to see him kind of playing this grandfather character. I thought that was great to see, and I was very just the race relations between the two, the way that it looks like they're going to play them. I'm hoping that it all works out well for the team of people behind this one.
Me too.
And I'm quite excited to hear you say that.
I feel like I'm maturing. I'm growing.
Let's do a Kevin Costner series now. I'm so excited.
Well, we don't need to.
Yes. Yes. This one opens January 30th.
All right.
So that's mine.
Go see mine first.
That's right.
You know what I find, Andy?
What's that?
It is so difficult to make a neat job of killing people with whom one is not on friendly terms.
We've been away the whole weekend.
I had to go.
Where?
To see Mrs. Descoyne, the widow of a cousin of mine was killed.
All your cousins seem to get killed. I really wouldn't be in the least surprised if you murdered them all.
I do not like to see my ideal woman wasting her great value in vain regret for the past. It is your duty to yourself and to others, to Henry even, to live again in the present, in the future.
What future is there for me?
I'd say your nose was just a little too short, and your mouth, yes, your mouth just a little too wide. When I've finished, I shall kill you. You will be the sixth Descoyne that I've killed.
It's clear that you are insane. Give me that gun at once.
No. From here, I think the wound should look consistent with the story that I shall tell.
Kind Hearts and Coronets, Andrew.
Mm-hmm.
Kind Hearts and Coronets. It hit us in 1949. Director Robert Hammer. Screenplay by Hammer and John Dighton. Based on the book Israel Rank, the autobiography of a criminal. The film stars the fantastic Dennis Price, Valerie Hobson, Joan Greenwood, and of course, Alec Guinness, and Alec Guinness. Can you give us a rundown of the story of Kind Hearts and Coronets? And an appropriate answer is yes, but an acceptable answer is I hopelessly no.
Of course I can.
All right, go for it.
Oh, in a horribly rambling way, I'm sure. Okay, so we have a poor relative, Louis, who's related to the Gascoigne family. Because of the way they disowned his mother when she fell in love with a... what was he? He was a musician.
He was an opera singer.
Yes, and because of the way they disowned her when she married beneath the family name... and then they refused to let her be buried in the family plot. He decides that what he's going to do is murder the heirs to the Gascoigne seat of the dukedom and take it over, basically. And so we follow him as he goes on a murdering rampage, killing the 8 heirs that stand in front of him so that he can take the helm.
That was quite good. I wouldn't call it a murdering rampage.
Okay, it wasn't. It was too British to be a rampage.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. Maybe a murdering prance.
They don't quite rampage over there.
So that's what this movie is about. And it was a really interesting bit of cosmic kismet. What do you think of that? Cosmic kismet. I just pull these things out.
You and your wordplay.
I'm a regular Jason Mraz. We got the list of the blacklist films and ended up running across this number 32, which is high on the blacklist. This ends up being sort of number 5 in popularity on the blacklist. Rothchild, a young, well-educated loner, kills the members of his mother's estranged family one by one in hopes that he will inherit the family's vast fortune. That is the tag for one of the films that is very popular right now.
I feel like I should have just read that.
I sort of feel like you should just... And so I sent that to you because I don't think you had read it at the time.
I hadn't looked at the full
and you
list
hadn't
yet.
seen the movie at the time, right? So by the time I sent this to you.
No, I hadn't rewatched this yet.
Yeah. So I sent that to you. I said, hey, this is a funny coincidence. And it turns out it's more than a coincidence. That the film Rothchild, written by John Patton Ford, is actually a revisioning of Kind Hearts and Coronets with inspiration from some other films. And you, in all of your entrepreneurial gusto, reached out to John Patton Ford to see if he'd join us on the show. And how'd that go?
It went great. And here he is.
Okay, we can do that better.
It's terrible.
It's getting really late.
Telling me.
And so you, in all of your editorial gusto, went out and reached out to John Patton Ford and called him, and turns out is a really nice guy, and he has agreed to join us on the show. And so let's go over to the corner of the studio and talk to him.
In the corner? Is he in trouble?
That's the corner. It's our because we have a giant studio, and that's where we go.
Oh, okay.
Because do you see the
in the corner, like with the dunce cap?
No, it's a studio in your mind's eye. You're a filmmaker, man. Crying out loud, try to keep up.
And tonight we actually have a special guest to talk to. It's his name is John Patton Ford, a writer-director who actually has written an updated version of Kind Hearts and Coronets that actually is on 2014's blacklist, all the top scripts of the year. So welcome, John.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Kind Hearts and Coronets. How did you come across it, and how did you end up deciding, hey, this is an interesting story that could use a retelling?
Yeah, I think it started with sheer frustration. I've been working in Los Angeles for a while since film school, trying to get stuff off the ground and shooting commercials and things like that, and just sort of scraping by with very little money, as people tend to do in this industry for a while. And then a friend of mine, a cinematographer friend of mine, got like the whole Criterion collection on DVD, which would make her like the last person to ever buy DVD. And she would have these weekly screenings of just like obscure, cool, random movies at her house. And that's how I saw Kind Hearts and Coronets. I'd never heard of it before. I wasn't aware of it. And this was maybe 2 years ago, maybe a little less than 2 years. And so I went over and I watched it and blown away because it's so contemporary. I mean, you can't believe it came out in 1949. It's just crazy, the sense of irony that it has and the kind of speed of the humor and the dryness of it. Maybe a big part of it is the fact that it's British and there's something more modern about old British humor. When you see it, it feels more like what our humor is now. But I was just really taken with it. I guess the other thing is that I was looking for a story about that frustration that I was talking about earlier, of what can I tell that's kind of relevant for my generation, that's sort of about someone who's in a ton of student debt and works really hard, but is suddenly kind of just pooped into this world where, you may have been better off not going to college, as scary as it is to say. And so I came across the story and I thought, you can kind of make a current version of this that instead of being about the British class system is about sort of this emerging American class system that we have, which we haven't really, I don't know if you could really have done that maybe 20 or 25 years ago, people would have just scratched their heads. But I think now you could have a movie that takes place in the United States in the current day and have just as kind of a rigid of a class system as Kind Hearts and Coronets had. I think it's a big. Go on.
No. I'm sorry. You finish your thought.
I've been rambling for a while now, but I think people have been trying to remake that for a long time. Like Mike Nichols tried to remake it. I don't know if you guys are aware of that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No one knew that until I wrote a script, and then I got a very passionate call from Mike Nichols' attorney. And the thing, yeah, exactly. I think the best part is that after the Blacklist came out, the first phone call we got was from this attorney with a weird accent from Rotterdam who represented the actual Rothchild family, demanding to know what the hell was going on.
Wow.
So people have been trying to remake Kind Hearts is such a timeless, cool story, and so is Israel Rank, the book that's based on. And I think people have been trying to remake that in the States for a long time, and it's just never quite worked.
There's something really interesting you can tie in with the whole 1% that is very modern, that's kind of burst forth, that I think you can use to your advantage.
It's totally true. And, I don't mean to, vilify the 1%. I don't totally buy into that whole thing, and I'm not here to really comment on that. But people, just the country as a whole, has kind of a lot of angst, I think, about that in a way that they didn't maybe 10 or 15 years ago. And so suddenly that kind of story is relevant now in a way that it just wasn't previously.
When you went back to take on this particular project, can you talk a little bit about about your process, about how you dive into doing kind of an update, a reimagining of such a timeless story?
Sure. I can't really tell you about what my regular process is because it's different kind of every time. But this time it was just like sort of a bolt of lightning. That's a terrible metaphor, but that's really what it was. I saw Kind Hearts and I was just like, oh, of course. It's so obvious. Of course. You just look at it and you're like, oh my God, everything. It all works. And so it became a matter of finding contemporary counterparts to all of these archetypes who are in Kind Hearts and Coronets. There's a religious person, there's a military person, there's just a young, rich kind of douche, for lack of a better term. And so it was finding our 2013 version of these people. That was a lot of the fun. I ended up changing nearly everything. And in fact, I've only seen Kind Hearts and Coronets once. I only saw it that one time. Wow. And then I just thought about it for months and months and just kind of marinated. And then I kind of just started writing based upon my imagined memory of the movie. If I went back and watched it, I'd probably be struck by how much stuff I forgot or how many things I kind of invented for myself. But really just taking that core concept. I think also the sense of humor and the sense of fun that it has. You could very easily make a serious movie about someone who kills off the members of their estranged family to kind of get the reward. But the fact that it does it with humor is just, that's the ticket, That's what makes it digestible.
The film, obviously, the original Kind Hearts is so well known for Alec Guinness's portrayal of the Gascoigne family.
Sure.
Are you going for any recommended character gimmicks in the production of your script?
No, I don't think so. I think tonally it's a little bit different. Those early Ealing comedies,
they had a little bit more headroom for that kind of thing.
They had a bit more headroom. If you really want to get Hollywood about it. People have had a hard time remaking a lot of Ealing comedies. For instance, the Coen brothers made Lady Killers, which is probably the biggest failure of their career.
Yes.
And what they did is they tried to remake it shot for shot, and it only proved that it just doesn't work on contemporary audiences. We have a sense of realism, a demand for realism now that people just didn't before, for whatever reason.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So now, but the interesting thing about the fact that they use Alec Guinness for all of those roles is it just makes it morally easy for the audience to digest, because you have this central character who kills somebody and it's like, holy crap, and then suddenly that same person kind of comes back 10 minutes later, and it makes it just a little easier to forgive the central character. It kind of lets you know, listen, this isn't real, it's a movie, chill out. Yeah. I think audiences today wouldn't be delighted in that like they were in 1949. They would just be frustrated.
Yeah.
I'd be like, no, we would really like to see that person get killed. Please show us that.
Talk a little bit about the Blacklist, your experience making it on the Blacklist.
I've been directing commercials and writing really small contained scripts that I hoped I could make myself, and I had a bunch of different projects. I still have a bunch of different projects in different stages of development, and I wrote Rothchild on spec. It was the easiest thing I ever wrote. I just blew through it in like 4 or 5 weeks or something, and that was maybe earlier in 2014. And then I went around town, and a lot of people read it, and I knew it was going to be on the list. I didn't know it would be like number 5. I thought it would be in the middle somewhere. And that was only recently. I guess the list came out in mid-December, and Hollywood kind of goes to sleep for about 3 weeks in December. Just no one's there. So it was like, whoa, I'm on the Blacklist, and then nobody's in LA. No phone calls being made. So I was like, all right. And then like Monday of this week was like the first day of school, and suddenly everyone's back, and it's been kind of madness. But when you get on the Blacklist, traditionally, the cool thing is like, you get an agent, or you get a financier, or you get a big producer. And I'm fortunate in the sense that I really already had all those things going. So what it does for me specifically is that it hopefully gives the project some urgency and will force people to make decisions quicker rather than slower. Mm-hmm. For instance, we're trying to find a director now, because I'm not going to direct this. And an actor, and being on the Blacklist just kind of, it gives you leverage. It allows you to call up some of the agents and be like, well, they got to read it by Friday because it's on the Blacklist. Like suddenly you could say that. So that's
nice.
Sort of what it does.
Well, this, man, seriously, thank you so much for jumping on, and congratulations, deep congratulations for hitting the Blacklist. And it was a real treat. I mean, a complete accident that we stumbled on the tag for Rothchild on the Blacklist, and just had to hear your story. So congratulations, and thanks for taking a few minutes to talk with us on the show.
I'm so glad you guys were excited about it, and not upset that I had ripped off a movie or something.
We're not those.
Everybody in Hollywood.
We're not those guys.
Okay.
Now we're thrilled, and hopefully we can have you back on the show once it's made.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be.
Let's
dare to dream.
Hey, we'll put it on the calendar. Now that was John Patton Ford. He is a wonderfully charming fellow. You can find more about John Patton Ford at johnpattonford.com, where you can see his commercials and music videos that he has done, and reach out to him should you feel so inclined. And now, let's continue. It's a weirdly charming romp about politics, class struggle, and serial murder. That's really, for me, that's where it comes down. But thankfully, just about everybody in the film keeps themselves in jolly high spirits, don't you think?
They really do. They really do.
I think here that Dennis Price is perfect as Louis Manzini. His sort of jilted lower class revenge story is just perfectly crafted here. This is a film where his narration works perfectly. It's designed around his narration as he's reading his memoirs to lead us on this journey through his murders. And the whole film is told in a flashback. We open when he's already on death row for a crime that we don't have a clear understanding of, and we're following sort of the hangman as he's assessing Louis Manzini and his neck. But then we get into this narration, which brings us so smoothly into his journey. It engenders such a buy-in from us that his cause is righteous, that it's easy to forget that he is, at the same time, the really, really bad guy. He kills a lot of people, but we don't ever really think about that. And so after all these murders, his false conviction and release, at the end of the film, we watch him walk out of the gates as the sort of the hero once again, and we feel with him that kick in the stomach that comes when he realizes he has in fact duped himself. And so we get to hurt for him, and we get our own sense of redemption in the film's resolution in the same breath. And I think that really works well. It's sort of an antique vision of this story, but I think it really does hold up and does so in a way that's charming and frankly works for a lot of ages. I watched this with my daughter, she is 12, and she loved it, which stunned me. I was surprised she'd even make it through it, but she loved it. So
that's fantastic.
The film really holds up well, and I think it has a really charming tale.
It's brilliant the way that it plays with the protagonist in a way that you, like you said, what he's doing is despicable. I mean, he basically sets out to kill 8 people so that he can take revenge and basically become the heir of the family fortune. It's a horrible thing. I mean, you're watching this person go through killing all these people just so he can, and even the ones that he doesn't kill, you can sense that thrill that he doesn't have to deal with them anymore. Like the 2 kids who end up, the 2 babies that are just born, the twins that end up dying of a diphtheria outbreak or something, I believe. And it's just it's almost like a little bit of joy as he kind of crosses them off of his the big family tree chart that he has. He's so despicable, but there is something so charming about him, and the story is so smartly told in a way that sets up him where you kind of feel for him a little bit in this way where this family of these awful people, particularly the Duke, who is the one who disinherits the mother, who won't let her be buried there, and just is very unresponsive to their letters, all of that. Just very rude, aristocratic, pompous British ass, I guess you could kind of say. And you can get a sense that Louis, in a way, is justified in his anger and his frustration at being tossed out, and you kind of feel for him. You feel for the underdog. You feel for the little guy, and it's just smart in the way that it's told, where you are wrapped into the story through the underdog who happens to set out to kill everybody so that he can come out on top. And it's dark when you really step back and think about what the story is doing and how it's tying you in to like this guy who is committing murders. Yes, absolutely. The murderer, Dennis Price, playing Louis Manzini. He is every bit the charmer that I wanted. Cary Grant to be in our holiday film this year. Like it was. I really enjoyed watching his pompousness, and I think much of that comes from his own background. I mean, he was born an aristocrat in Britain. I mean, this is a guy who knows from whence he came. At least he knew what he was aspiring to in this character, I think. Yes, yeah, absolutely. He plays it so well. He plays it so there's that. It's just that he comes across as an aristocrat, even though he's not necessarily playing an aristocrat. But he just has that sense of place where he can get away with it because he just kind of he has the air about him. His first meeting with the younger Lord Gascoigne in the ladies' undergarments store, he comes off with a sense of arrogance and propriety that outdoes Alec Guinness's introduction in that scene. And in the arc of the story, he's fired for responding with impetuousness. But he is, you can tell, he just towers over the scene. I mean, every frame in which he stands up, that 6'2" frame of Price just dominates. And I think it somehow he is able to soften that arrogance enough that we still like him, that he's funny and charming, and now he's dealing not only with the plot to murder all these people, but now he's juggling potential girlfriends, that it ends up sort of winning us over through his personality alone. Yeah. Yeah, which you really bank on in a film like this. I mean, if it was an actor who you had a harder time connecting with, I mean, the story wouldn't have worked nearly as well as it does.
Or I think an actor, I bring up the Cary Grant reference because I think his, one of my qualms with the Bishop's Wife, his portrayal in The Bishop's Wife, is that, he came off as Cary Grant, and obviously that was a big sale for that film. But this I think, this approach ends up being just sort of pantomime enough that we believe that this is a character and not somebody just plodding through as a name. And I really appreciate his role here as sort of the class jilted suitor.
Absolutely.
The ladies.
Mm-hmm.
The first lady we have on the mark is plays the character's strangest name. I think I've heard Sibella.
Sibella.
Joan Greenwood, the lovely Joan Greenwood,
who also is in The Man in the White Suit with Alec Guinness.
Yes, indeed. Mm-hmm. What did you think of her in this film? She is young and flamboyant, and she's a flibbertigibbet.
She and there's this impetuousness about her that I was struggling trying to think, like, who is the Joan Greenwood today? Like, who could pull off a role like this? I don't know who it is, but there was something about Joan Greenwood in this film that was so captivating, and just this I don't know. There's a little hint of maliciousness and just the way that she plays it, and plays him and everything, especially toward the end of the film. I just was in love with her.
Now you've got me thinking about who could do it. Did you come up with anybody?
I haven't.
Like Reese Witherspoon. No. She had that whole Cruel Intentions era, she was a little young to really play that with maturity. But that's why I can kind of visualize her in the role.
Yeah, she did. She did have that. But yeah, it's like, who is that person today who could really kind of come across? I think there's probably a lot of actresses who could, but Jennifer Lawrence, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, I don't know. She was pretty impressive in American Hustle. She had
that's true.
kind of.
You bring up. I would say Amy Adams might be one.
There's an interesting one. Yeah. She had an interesting turn in The Master.
Because there's that. Yeah, exactly. There's that sense of like impetuousness and frivolousness and just a little bit of a dominatrix. Right.
Yeah, right.
Right. Anyway, back to Joan Greenwood. I think her portrayal in this film is really fascinating, and I think she is really the consummate tease for poor Lord wannabe. And yet she's delightful to watch with him. And there's a bit of me that really wanted them to end up together and to end up together more sort of smoothly. But their storyline ended up corrupted as did just about every relationship arc in this film.
Yeah, it does. But at the same time, there is a sense that they are meant to be together.
Yeah,
just they each have their own terrible way about them, and it's they do seem like they're more appropriately paired than if he ended up with Valerie Hobson.
That is the truth. And as it turns out, in one particular twist, as they end up sort of blackmailing each other into to sort of twist the plot to their own devices, we get to see who she really is and her own sort of, not necessarily regrets, but machinations behind her marrying the most boring man in London, in all of Europe, which I think was just wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
You mentioned Valerie Hobson.
Mm-hmm. As the lovely Edith Gascoigne.
She is the widowed... She plays the widowed spouse of one of the young foppish Gascoigne.
Right.
The young photographer who blows himself up.
A relatively likable version. I mean,
yes,
it was kind of sad to see him go.
He was the one that I was sad to see go.
Yes.
We could talk about each of the deaths.
Yeah, right.
So she was she was she was the righteous of the pair.
Yes. A little too righteous.
A little bit too righteous. That made for sort of a rough marriage for her with her young Henry Gascoigne. But they had, she kept him from drinking. She kept him from going to pubs. She kept him from doing a whole lot of things other than taking a lot of pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And in her sorrow, as she recovered from mourning his death, she became the target of Dennis Price's affections.
Yeah, she comes across. She has a good sense of that virtuousness that plays so nicely in this film.
And then we get, of course, to the namesake of our series, Sir Alec Guinness, who plays all of the Gascoignes. How does he hit you?
He is just so much fun to watch. I mean, we started this particular series because this is a guy who, unfortunately, I mean, I say that as a huge fan of Star Wars. I love the films. But it is unfortunate that so few people know who he is outside of Obi Wan Kenobi. And going back to these early films, and you just see what he's doing. I mean, here he's got these 8 roles. They're each relatively some of them are very short and very small roles, but he creates these 8 characters. He just gets into them, whether he hunches a little bit more, or he changes his voice a little bit more, or the way the makeup's applied, or just the way his mannerisms are. He creates such great characters for all these 8 characters. They feel so completely different, even though at the heart they're clearly him. The way that he goes from kind of the foppish photographer you were talking about to the reverend, kind of the old and withered reverend, to the suffragette and the way that she holds herself so high and just marches around and everything. I mean, it's fantastic. All of them are so different, and this is, I think, such a great way to kick off this series, looking at just this wide swath of acting prowess that Alec Guinness has in creating such amazing and exciting characters in one film.
Absolutely agree. It's the perfect blend of charm, goof, and just general comedic breadth in this film. It's just a great sort of reintroduction to Alec Guinness. So I think now we should talk about your favorite murder.
My favorite murder.
That's really that's the whole purpose here, is that he goes around, he's killing all these guys to knock him off the family tree so that he can be the Lord, and he does so in some really clever ways.
I don't know. I mean, I think the photographer is my favorite. I don't know. There's something just about that one that, I mean, I feel so bad about it, but I really just enjoy the way he sets that whole thing up, and the way that he does such a good job of distracting, the photographer's wife while he's blowing himself up, until he kind of casually points out the smoke coming from the other side of the wall. Oh, they're burning leaves. This, that whole thing.
That was going to be mine for that very reason. I think the delivery of that particular murder is really spot on perfect. The humor, the slow burn, so to speak, of the humor when we hear the boom in the background, but she doesn't notice it.
Right.
Is just so perfect. But because you already took that one, I will say the Reverend, if only for the bit where the Reverend actually asks Louis, who is pretending to be a visiting scholar, bishop, right, to speak in a language that he does not speak, and he ends up making these after trying to say, really, it's not the time. It's not that great. I lost the language. He ends up just making these guttural noises that have me rolling with laughter. It is just perfect. The murder itself ends up being just kind of a subtle poisoning, and he goes to sleep. But the setup, I think, is really quite good. The Admiral goes down with his ship. That's very brief. Who else?
I would say the other one that I really enjoy,
Lady
even though
Agatha?
it's not. Well, I love that one, but the other one that I really enjoy is it's not even a murder, but it's just the way that it plays out is when his boss, I can't remember, he's just one of the
banker,
Descoings,
Lord
the banker,
Descoing, yeah.
Right. He, the way that plays where when he finds out that he has all of a sudden become the Duke because everyone ahead of him basically has died, or next in succession, he has a heart attack and dies. But the way they set that up is you're at a funeral watching the one who just died, and then the voiceover kicks in and it talks about how he died. And then as he hits that line, you see the second coffin come in right behind. And it's just like, that's a great way to just kind of just speed things along, but just also is a way that you weren't expecting at all. And I had such a great laugh when that second coffin popped into the frame.
Truly, it was just really wonderful setup. Now, we should talk about the cinematography, the camera work in this film, only because there are some. It's an interesting bit of trickery to do, particularly the sequences where you have, and there are a couple of sequences where we have two Descoings or more on screen at the same time. The big one is obviously in church. Right. As we have I think at that point we have only 6 Descoings on screen at the same time at one of the funerals. The cinematography was done by Douglas Slocombe.
Good old Dougie Slocombe, yep.
We've been here before.
It's on the other end of his career.
Right? That was unreal. That is an unreal discovery for me.
I completely agree.
This of course hits Kind Hearts and Coronets 1949. He started working, it looks like, with shorts and documentaries in 1940. So he was still fairly new in the game. And the last time we talked about him was, goodness, seriously, 3 years ago?
At the beginning.
When we did our Indiana Jones series. He did Raiders of the Lost Ark, Temple of Doom, Last Crusade.
That is crazy.
Bananas. So what'd you think? Did he mature? Did he mature over the 50 years?
Well, there's something that's just great about black and white cinematography, and for a dark satire like this, you could have played around with it quite a bit. I don't think he goes that way, kind of trying to create this darkness or anything like that. But what he does is just create this just rich world that I think it has the right tone for the richness of the Descoing family, and also of just the regular world that Louis is living in. And I think he captures it all very nicely.
I think so too. And I think, capturing and making it feel like a very natural transition between the real world, the world of commerce downtown working in the underwear store, to going out to the Chalfont, estate, where we see the castle. And we always, that when we're introduced to the castle, it's always from such a distance that we see Louis on a paid tour of it. He's walking on the gate with a bunch of tourists, which I find really amusing. And they always end up, there's just some wonderful stills of that you can grab from this film of Louis standing with his back to the camera, looking out over the, under a tree with a tree frame looking out over the sort of the moat of this castle. And it's just there's some really striking framings in this movie. It's done really well. Talk a little bit about how he captured some of the, because he did the whole black plate thing to capture all 6 of the Descoing Guinnesses on screen at once.
It's it's just a camera technique where they would film with Alec Guinness in one spot, and they would have a black plate essentially over the film, so that it's not letting any light in. And then when they captured that, they'd back the film up, change the position of the plate, and keep doing it. And as it shifted, they would have Alec Guinness in the next spot, and then the next spot. I mean, it's kind of the same thing they did with Haley Mills in the Freaky Friday and things like that. But but it's a great technique that I think allowed them to really play around with this sort of thing, where you could use that Hollywood magic or that movie magic, since this is Britain, and just the fun movie magic, and actually allow all these different Alec Guinnesses and all these different iterations to be on screen at the same time.
Word is, and I wasn't there, but the rumor is, as it is written, Slocombe slept with the camera overnight to ensure that it wouldn't move, that no one bumped it.
Very dedicated.
Very dedicated camera operator right there.
Absolutely.
All right. Who else is interesting to you?
I think there's a few people. Well, one, we should mention Robert Hammer, the director.
Yes.
He certainly is an interesting guy. From what I read, he was a little bit of the wild card at Ealing Studios, who would kind of come in there and was not necessarily always the one to follow the rules. Ealing Studios would make these wonderfully light comedies and all sorts of stuff, and Robert was a little more trying to push the bounds and stuff. And this film certainly was that. It was a lot darker than the folks at Ealing, particularly Michael Balcon, the producer at the time at Ealing, who was behind these films, more than he was expecting it to be. More a little sexually charged than than they were expecting it to be. Certainly with all the affairs going on. But Hammer really felt this was the story that he wanted to tell, and he got it told. And I think he did the right thing with it. But he's a director who actually started out editing with Hitchcock, actually, and working as an editing assistant, and then started editing with Jamaica Inn with Hitchcock. And he ended up. I think he ended up having quite a drinking problem toward the end of his career and faded out, unfortunately. But I think he was, and he also had a problem. He was homosexual. And this was, anyone who's seen The Imitation Game knows how England felt about homosexuals back in these days. And he, hid it. He had an alcohol problem, probably partially because of it. And his career kind of crumbled toward the end after 1960. And that was kind of the end of it, which is unfortunate because I think he brought a lot to the table with this film. I think it was a very interesting story, and it was a bold story. I think it feels very modern by today's standards.
It's sort of why these Ealing comedies, for some reason, kind of hold up better. And maybe it is, as John mentioned in our brief interview with him, why it's sort of that British humor that has a little bit more staying power than some other brands of slapstick.
They're so far advanced.
That was an interesting era of these Ealing comedies, right? That era between the late 40s and late 50s, where Ealing Studios really just created sort of a gestalt around this style of comedy. You know much about where they came from there?
Well, Ealing definitely. It's a big name in the film world. Ealing, I believe,
it's a 100-year-old studio.
Yeah, I believe it is the oldest continuously working studio facility for film production in the world.
Yeah.
It's just been around for a heck of a long time. Shaun of the Dead filmed some of its stuff there. It's just been around for a long time. A number of different people have headed it up. At the time that we're looking at it, it was a man by the name of, as I mentioned, Michael Balcon, who was producing the films there. And I think they were churning out about 6 films a year, and just trying to churn out just a solid variety of stuff. And I think that he just really hit it very well in this period where they just started cranking out stuff that was really working. And just a lot of great films ended up coming out of here. And he was kind of behind all of it, and made a lot of great stuff happen. They did Dead of Night, which was a great little a horror anthology film that came out in 1945 that I love. I think it's just one of the greats, and actually Hammer directed one of the stories in that, and he produced like all of most of these films that we're going to be talking about from this period. I mean, he was behind them. He was kind of the guy who was pushing them to make it happen. So he was a very key part of the Ealing Studios back at that time. I mean, the same year that Kind Hearts and Coronets came out, they also did Eureka Stockade, Passport to Pimlico, Whiskey Galore, Train of Events, and A Run for Your Money. So, I mean, it was a busy place. They were just cranking stuff out. One note before we jump away from Michael Balcon,
okay,
that I thought was very interesting, just kind of reading up on him. He actually had 2 children with, I believe it was his wife, Eileen Frieda Leatherman, and his son-in-law, his daughter Jill, married son-in-law Cecil Day-Lewis, and Michael Balcon is grandfather to Daniel Day-Lewis.
Day-Lewis.
I know.
Check that out.
Small world.
Getting smaller. Okay, now can we talk about the Hangman?
Yes.
Miles Malleson.
Great hangman.
Great hangman.
I don't know if that's something you normally want to say about hangman. But
He is a great hangman, and he has been in a boatload of stuff. Not the least of which, The Man in the White Suit. But he's done, my goodness, he has been working for many, many years. First film in 1921, The Headmaster. Last film when he died, You Must Be Joking, 1965. 133 credits for Miles Malleson. A wonderfully charismatic face.
This is one of those films where they write the parts for these bit players, bit characters really well, and then they find the right people to play them. And he just worked perfectly as a hangman.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wonderfully funny way to introduce the film and to close the film he ends up reading a bit of poetry.
Right. Well, and he's so British. I mean, that's what's great the way that, as he's initially leaving, he's like, oh, do I address him as Your Highness or Your Grace? It's like, oh, Your Grace. And then you see him practicing Your Grace.
As he walks around the corner.
This is a guy he's going to hang. And here he is, making sure that he's doing his address properly. And
right.
It's just great. I just loved
really
it.
Wonderful. Let's see. Anybody else on your list?
No, I think that was it. Just looking at the screenplay Robert Hammer wrote with John Dighton, who John Dighton also is just one of these people. He, Ealing Studios had hired him. He had already done a bunch of other stuff, but he ended up, collaborating on a lot of these scripts. This one, Man in the White Suit, which he was nominated for an Oscar for. He also was nominated for writing Roman Holiday, which is a very popular film. So, somebody who really kind of gets that vibe of storytelling.
How did the film do? Did it do pretty well when it came out? What'd you find?
I actually could not find anything about this. I have a feeling, some of these British films, it is just so hard to track down the statistics about how it did financially, even what the budget was. I couldn't find anything. Did you find anything?
Not a thing.
Yeah.
Not a sausage.
Not a sausage.
No.
I did see that it was received well critically. I saw that the critics generally enjoyed it.
So I guess I just sort of live with hope that the finances support my belief that it should do well, should have done well. How about that?
Me too. That's great. That sounds great.
So if you were to offer just one reason, somebody comes up to you in an elevator and says, hey, what movie should I watch tonight? And you have this one on the brain. What's the one big reason that you think they should watch this film?
The one reason is, I feel like I would want to say Alec Guinness to get a sense of who Alec Guinness is and what he could do outside of playing Obi Wan Kenobi.
That is also my one reason. I think it is such a classic charmer, and it holds up as great fun for a broad audience. Again, I can't believe my daughter laughed at this film and talks about it now, weeks after we've watched it. But for me, it really, if there is one reason to catch this film, it is to get this reintroduction to Alec Guinness as just such a fine character comedian. With a range so far beyond Obi-Wan. So it's like, you see it for old Ben, but you love it for the classic British hijinks.
Absolutely.
That's the deal. There's a really funny, as I was schlocking around YouTube for interviews, I came across one of the rare interviews that Alec Guinness did with David Letterman.
Oh, wow.
And, it's like 12 minutes, and he was hawking his book. Right, so he had to go out and do these TV interviews, and so he talks a little bit about, about his early days and the people that he hung out with, and then, he talks about George Lucas, and he says, I had just come off of Murder by Death, another film that we're going to be talking about in this series, and he says, I get this script, and it's for Star Wars, and I read it, and I thought, God, the dialogue is really not good. But apart from that, it was a total page turner. It was science fiction. I thought, I hate science fiction. The dialogue's terrible, and yet I turned every page and I read to the very end, and that doesn't happen very often. And so he took the film, and then Letterman asks him, he says, what's it like to have your character associated with the line from the movie that will be associated with the people forever and ever, amen. And his eyes just sort of glaze over as Letterman says, will you do it for us? Guinness is so annoyed that he's been asked to do May the Force Be With You one more time. It's really worth watching. I'll put a link.
That is so funny. Yeah. That is great.
All right.
Poor man.
I think we should rank it.
Let's do it.
Head on over to Flickchart, everybody. Flickchart.com/thenextreel, and you can see our list of top films, hundreds upon hundred of films that we have ranked over the years, and see if our top films stack up with your top films. And let's see if this one breaks the top 81.
Top 81. All right, let's see. Kind Hearts and Coronets or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Already it's tough. Isn't it?
Yep. I'm going to have to say Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Yeah, me too.
That's too bad.
All right. Kind Hearts and Coronets or The Adventures of Baron Munchausen?
Kind Hearts and Coronets.
I agree. Kind Hearts and Coronets or A Fistful of Dollars?
I'm going to say Kind Hearts and Coronets on this one.
I am too.
Really?
I'm surprising myself.
I thought we were going to duke this one out.
Nope, not on this one, but maybe this one. Kind Hearts and Coronets or Big Fish?
Big Fish.
I would do Kind Hearts and Coronets.
How badly?
Well, I think pretty strongly.
I'm a pretty big Fish fan.
I know you are.
Don't make me call John August. I will call him right now and get him on this call. I think we're going to have to do it. Let's do it. Ready?
Okay, ready?
One, two, three.
Rock. I think Rock takes that.
No, we got to do that one more time. Come on. Because I was looking at my notes and I saw Obi Wan Kenobi. I was going to say Rock versus Obi Wan Kenobi, and everybody knows that Obi Wan wins over Rock.
Oh, I see. All right,
ready?
Let's try it again.
One,
two,
three. Scissors.
Rock. Yes.
You totally cheated. I'll give it to you, but you're a cheat.
All right.
Dirty desk coin.
Yep. That's right. 1% over here. Kind Hearts and Coronets or The Asphalt Jungle? Little John Huston.
Jeez. That's a tough one. I think I'm going to say Kind Hearts and Coronets on this one.
Yeah, I think I am too. Kind Hearts and Coronets or everybody's favorite, Knowing.
Please, Kind Hearts and Coronets. Do we even have to do it?
I'll give you Kind Hearts on this one.
Oh, you're so generous.
I am. Kind Hearts and Coronets or De Palma's Carrie.
Kind Hearts and Coronets.
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like I would go with Carrie, but I'm kind of torn a little bit. So I guess I'll give you Kind Hearts on this one. I like the this is the Spanish poster for Kind Hearts and Coronets, and it's called Ocho Sentencias de Muerte. 8 death sentences. I love that. I'm going to pick that one just for the poster.
That's so much better than the original title. That's terrible.
All right. What were we over 81?
Yeah.
It didn't break the top 81, but it is number 84.
No way.
Got
That's
pretty close.
Pretty close.
84 out of 166 movies.
Nice job.
Yeah. Not too bad.
KHAC. Well, that's great. And so where do we go, pray tell, from Kind Hearts and Coronets?
Well, we're going to be hanging out with Ealing for a little bit longer. We're going to do the Lavender Hill Mob.
Lavender Hill Mob. Excellent. I'm having such fun with this series, I'm telling you. This is a great idea.
I'm loving it. This is one where I know I've seen Kind Hearts and Coronets before, and The Man in the White Suit. I can't remember if I've seen Lavender Hill Mob before or not. I feel like I have, but I don't remember a thing about it. So I'm actually quite looking forward to this one.
Excellent. Excellent. Of course, all of this leads up to my favorite, Murder by Death.
Which I still haven't seen.
Can't wait.
I know, I'm looking forward to it.
Me too. In the meantime, I gotta go to bed.
All right. I've got some family members I need to go deal with.
All right, seriously, that's horrible because of the movie we just did and the fact that the trailer was about Christian Longo. That creeps me out. I'm going to go first. No, you should go first. I went first on the trailers. You go first.
Oh, all right. This is by Brilliant Barbara, Barbara's Views. She's created a whole thing. Do you see that?
Wow.
It's I know.
She's like got an Amazon niche.
She does. I know. I wonder. I don't know the rest of Barbara's views, but this is her view on this. Oldie and sometimes moldy. The acting is brilliant, but the film moves slow. Some of the language was okay in its day, but not acceptable today. And I don't mean swear words. I think we know what she's meaning there, Pete.
I think we do.
It's worth seeing to see Alec Guinness play 8 different parts. So, Barbara's views are rather short. Yeah, rather short.
They're short. Mine is actually another actual niche on Amazon. A Customer has written. I've seen a lot of A Customer's work. Witty serial killer's autobiography, writes A Customer. Louis Manzini, sitting on death row in 19th century England, waiting on his execution the following morning. The prison ward is astounded over Manzini's calm behavior before the execution as Mazzini begins to tell his life's account. He was born a son of a father who died at the first sight of him, and a mother who married his father, who was below her social rank and was disowned by the Gascoigne family as a result. Kind Hearts and Coronets is a extremely witty story with very dry, dark humor, combined with the mind of a serial killer that pulls at the facial muscles of the audience numerous times. Now, generally, that's not a terribly entertaining thing, but I find myself laughing hard at that last line about the serial killer that pulls on people's facial muscles numerous times.
What a way to die. How did he kill him?
How did he kill him?
He pulled on his facial muscles.
He pulled on his facial muscles numerous times. Get it? It's funnier when I explain it.
The whole thing was that Bret Easton Ellis would be there signing autographs. He could show up. So there are all these people just hovering around, like waiting to meet Bret Easton Ellis, and then the night just kept going, and it became clear, like, I don't think he's going to show up.
Speaking of musicals, we just made that comment that one of the films we talked about briefly earlier in the show is True Story, coming up from Rupert Gould, who actually directed the musical of American Psycho.
Rupert Gould is actually one of the directors who's currently reading Rothchild.
Really?
So there you go. Yeah.
It's the circle of
hear
life.
A really crazy story?
Please.
You talk about circle of life. Check this out. So when I was 13, I was obsessed with skiing. It was all I did, and I just poured over Skiing Magazine, which was my favorite. And there was a monthly article that would come out in Skiing Magazine called Alpine Circus, written by this guy who traveled all over the world and ski just the craziest stuff, and he was just a great writer and a great adventurer. His name was Michael Finkel. And I had a class project. You have to interview the person who has your dream job. It gets better, guys. Track down the person who has your dream job, interview them. This was the class assignment in 8th grade. I called the editors of Skiing Magazine, got Finkel's number in Bozeman, Montana, and called him during the NBA Finals in, I think, 1997 or something, and interviewed him over the phone. And he talked to me and told me about being a journalist and told me about journalistic rigor and how important it was, and told me about his travels, and it was great. And I've always wondered ever since, like, I wonder what Michael Finkel has been up to. And apparently he's been up to a lot.
Yeah.
Back me up, Chad.
Andy, it is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
I love The Next Reel Season 4. Do you know why?
I don't. Why?
Because we got to talk about my favorite movie, Terry Gilliam's Brazil.
That's not even an adaptation.
No, but it was such a great part of our great Terry Gilliam series, and a few others in that series were adaptations, like The Adventures of Baron Munchausen, adapted from Raspi's stories, and La Jetée, which inspired 12 Monkeys.
Oh, right. And for our Man with No Name trilogy, we saw how Sergio Leone's A Fistful of Dollars was basically stolen from Kurosawa's Yojimbo.
We added Labor Day to our Jason Reitman series, adapted from Joyce Maynard's novel.
Oof, there's one we'll always regret.
Our big Stephen King series covered adaptations like The Shining, Cujo, Christine, and Stand By Me, great horror and coming-of-age tales.
Another Coen Brothers adaptation, too. We got to talk about how they turned Homer's The Odyssey into Oh, Brother, Where Art Thou?
For our holiday series, we did The Bishop's Wife and The Poseidon Adventure.
And who could forget seeing Alec Guinness in the adaptation of Kind Hearts and Coronets during our series dedicated to him.
We really need to do more of his films.
Truly.
We had our first film noir series with classics like Double Indemnity, Detour, and Out of the Past.
And our black and white cinematography of James Wong Howe's series with The Thin Man, Sweet Smell of Success, Seconds, and King's Row. So many adaptations.
Oh, you're not kidding. Dive deeper into these originals and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every book you buy helps support our show.
Get the full list at thenextreel.com/originals and start reading today.